So this is Dan of Vagabond Awake, and I wanted to just reflect on what worked and what doesn't work for me in terms of online dating. In case you're wondering how it might be different in Asia, maybe this will give you some ideas. There's different kinds of way people do it. I just interviewed a guy, and he was successful, ended up marrying someone, and his technique was a little different from mine. So I want to just talk about his first, which worked for him, and then talk about some of the experiences I've had doing it his way that didn't work out. So he was living in the States, and he put up his profile in Asia and started talking to women, particularly in the Philippines. And his goal was to come to the Philippines and to visit a number of cities. I don't know, 4, 5, 6 cities. So rather than talking about love or focusing on love, he talked about right away that he would be visiting 4 or 5 cities, and that he wanted to have a guide in each city. If something came out of it, he was fine with that, but that wasn't his intention. He was looking more for someone that he communicated well with online, and that could, when he came to their city, would not be opposed to the idea of a relationship, but that the main purpose would be to come low pressure. I'm looking for a guide to show me their city. And so that's kind of what his approach was. He put up his profile in a couple different spots, and he started fielding calls. At first few days he didn't get much, but pretty soon he had hundreds of requests around the Philippines, and he said he filtered them basically by not, as soon as somebody asked for money, or he felt awkward communicating with them, he would just cut it off, and that was kind of the way he would narrow the field. And eventually he got it down to a handful of ones, one for each city he was going to visit. And this is a concept. It's not exactly quoting what he did, but and so he finally came to the Philippines, and met a woman who later became his wife a couple of years later, so that's a successful story of a way to do it, kind of a low pressure way to get to know women or men, whatever your thing is, and without trying to screen them heavily in terms of all of the things people would ask each other at first. Okay, so the way he described it, he communicated with her, I think he said it was at least 6 months, the one that he ended up marrying, before he came to the Philippines. And so he knew her well, but he didn't know whether or not what they had developed online would translate into a long-term relationship, which it eventually did. But so for me, I've dated both in America, where I'm from, and I've dated also in Asia, and so I've noticed some things, and that is that first I'll get a couple of things out of the way. I agree with this concept about not giving money away. That pretty much just going to see that in the Philippines and maybe in Thailand, because there are professional, I won't call them daters because you may never meet them, but they develop relationships online with many men, and I'm sure many of their stories are true, but they tell these stories about something in their family that's having trouble, or they don't have enough money on their phone to communicate, so they're asking for money all the time, and if they have enough people giving them money, it's kind of like a job or whatever. So maybe they're professional, I'll call them non-daters, and maybe some of them are really looking for love, and they really need the money. Their mom really is sick, or their uncle or aunt or child or whatever their story is, but it is a concern, and maybe so there's that group of people. I'm not talking about them. I recommend you not send money, but let your heart guide you whether or not you believe their story, and whether or not it's to send them money. I'm going to assume you're an adult, you can make your own decisions. But that's how I would play that. I'm just looking for someone to communicate. I would be looking for someone to communicate with. Now, so I do things a little bit differently, both when I was in the U.S. and once I came to Asia. Now, let me talk about that. So, in general, in the U.S., I had a rule where I would only communicate. Maybe I would trade 5 or 10 texts back and forth. Now, this is when I was living in the U.S. and I had my profile up in the city I lived in. And if I traded 5 or 10 texts with a woman and I was interested in her, I'd seen her photos, I'd read about her life, we talked a little bit about her interests in those, 10-ish texts, then I would say, hey, let's get together for coffee. So not a full-on dinner, not a sit down for hours, but just a short way to meet. Maybe at a coffee shop, maybe at a park, go for a walk. The idea was, is there initial attraction? So that was what my goal would be after like 10 texts back and forth in the States. And then the ones that would meet me, great, I would meet them. And then see if there was basic attraction. Were they intelligent? Were their photos, were they actually a woman and not, whatever. Not that I had an experience with that, but you hear these stories about people grabbing other people's photos online and then, I don't know, making up stories about a life or whatever. Who knows why they do any of that. But so I would not want to invest my emotions into someone until I'd met them and made sure they were a real person and that I was attracted to them and I felt they were attracted to me. It was just a way of preserving, kind of a time management thing, because let me tell you why I did that. So there was when I was living in the US, there was early on in my dating after my divorce, there was a woman that I was attracted to, and we had a nice rapport online. I don't remember why, but when we first met, she couldn't meet me. I think she was working out of town. Then later, family was visiting, and this went on and on for months. And I was emotionally invested with her because we were honestly enjoying our conversation. She was smart. She was interesting. So I became emotionally invested, and so and it kind of affected because I was so attracted to her. And again, not in person, just pictures she had sent me. It kind of tainted my view of the other women that were available to me to really meet. So she kind of stood out in this high spot in my mind, but I never met her. She never would meet me. And so I have to wonder, was that not her pictures? Was she married? What was it about her? So I don't recommend getting emotionally involved with someone if they're not going to meet you. If they're not interested enough in you and available enough to meet you, within 10, set your own rule. For me, it was 10 texts, maybe 12. Once we agreed to meet, maybe there's some back and forth about what time and where, whatever. But once there was basic attraction and basic interests and basic ideas about what life was about and that we were similar and interested in each other, I would want to meet. Because of what happened with that, if I go on and on and on after those 10 texts, I can become really attached to someone that I've never met, and that's just a waste of time for me. And it's not a realistic possibility if that person turns into someone that you can never meet. Now, the one exception to that is I would say, look, I really am interested in you. I understand you're out of town or working, but once you're back in town, let me know. We'll meet, because I'm honestly interested in you, but I can't develop a full relationship online with you. So there are exceptions where I would text with 10 and then say, oh, when you're back in town, let me know when you're available, let me know when you're relative, whatever your story is, why you can't meet now. I'm going to quit communicating with you. Doesn't mean I'm not interested, but let me know when you're ready to meet, then I'll meet you. And so there were stories like that too, where someone would eventually get back in town or would eventually be able to meet me. I'd meet them, but I would still stop at that 10, 12 texts. And that was a way to protect my emotions, my interests, and to quit skewing the possibility that there's this gorgeous woman out there just for me, and I'm ignoring these real women that can meet me that are available, and so that it would mess with my mind. So that became a thing for me. And then, so now I'm in Asia. I travel, I'm a slow traveler. I travel over the world. the next thing I noticed is, in order to avoid a situation where I'm in Asia and I'm going past that 10 or 12 text rule, is I would never put up my profile in the city until 2 weeks before I got there, because in 2 weeks I would like them, they would like me, we'd send messages back and forth, and I'd be at 20, 30, and so I knew 2 weeks was the max. And I would never put up my profile, and I would still stop at the 10 or 12 if I was really attracted to a woman, because I wouldn't say, well, it's already been a week and we're up to 10. I would say, I'll be there in a week. I won't be in communication till then, but I'll let you know I'm in town. I really want to meet you, blah, blah. And if they wanted to meet and they were available at that time, I would meet them, but I would stick to that thing so I didn't get emotionally attached to someone who really wasn't available. They had some other game they were playing, or maybe they just weren't attracted. Whatever the reason is, I would stop at that, and I would get to a town and I would let them know. And the ones that could meet, I would meet them. The ones that didn't, and then once I'm in the town, of course, I'd follow the 10 to 12 text rule. So that was kind of my way of protecting my time and protecting my emotional investment in things that could never be possible. Because honestly, if I'm attractive enough to a woman to invite to meet her, but it's not mutual, she's just semi-interested, maybe really is single, not married or whatever, but she doesn't want to meet me, that means she's not interested enough in me. And so I didn't want to, you know, that movie, she's just not, or he's just not that into you. To me, it has to be mutual. That's what's very important about a relationship. And so don't let people mess with you, is what I'm saying. And so when I got to Asia, I followed that. And when I popped around, I'd throw my profile up a week before I got there. I would leave it up there till a few days before I left. And then when I found, as a slow traveler, you can extend. That's one of the benefits of being a slow traveler. You get to a city and you really are enjoying the city and or the woman that you've met finally, you just extend, stay there longer. And so that's what would happen when I found one I really liked. So I'd never really, because I was a slow traveler, if the woman wasn't interesting enough for me to stay in a place or to return back to it, I wouldn't really pursue a relationship. So I dated here and there as a slow traveler, but not as much as when I was in the US and in the single city, and I had a set group of women that I could choose from that were mutually interested. I did more dating. But in a way it was beneficial because you didn't waste time spending more time with a woman that you're just not that into, just because, oh, it's Thursday night and I got nothing to do. I'll text one of them, we'll go out to dinner or whatever. It was, you know, you just spent your time more specifically about ones that you were interested in, more than just let's do something, it's Thursday night. And so with Chung, what happened, who I've been with for 8 years now, she's traveling the world with me. You know who she is, I'm sure. Or if you don't, you'll see her in all my videos. She travels all over the world with me. So I was in Kuala Lumpur. Chung lived there. She was from a smaller town in the north part of Malaysia, but she was living in the city. She had moved there, I think when she was 20 or 21, to pursue a modeling career. She was a runway model, very successful model both in Malaysia, and she also did some international modeling. And so she was getting towards the end of her career. She had already been in it, I think, about 10 or 12 years. And she had started to pursue other things. She had started another job. She had her own apartment and car and everything. And so she was established in Kuala Lumpur. So anyway, I swiped right and met her on Tinder. And I don't remember all the details. Chung said that she swiped right on me and then asked me where I was from, and I said the US or California or something, and she wasn't interested. She had dated a few Americans and didn't and kind of had a sour taste in her mouth about Americans. So but then about a month later she sent me a text and said, hey, are you in town this weekend? Because it was a holiday weekend in Kuala Lumpur. And so we went out to dinner. We had a really good time, and we've been together pretty much ever since. Now, Malaysia only gives a 90 day visa to Americans upon entry, a tourist exemption visa. And so it took time for our relationship to develop. I was towards the end of that 90 when we first met, so I don't remember where. I went to another country in Southeast Asia and said, hey, I'll come back and visit in a month, we'll see how things develop. And over the next year, I would fly back to Kuala Lumpur every month, every other month or whatever, and spend time with her. And things just developed. But she was successful. She was supporting herself. She had her own life, her own business, and she was, I don't know, 30, 31 at the time, and I was, you know, maybe 57, 58, and I was traveling the world, and I really enjoyed her time and thought she was intelligent and fun. Obviously, she's beautiful, and so, but I was just sort of going slow with it because I thought she has a life. You know, if I take her with me to travel the world and things don't work out, she'll have to come back, get an apartment, get a new job or whatever. So I was just waiting slowly, letting things develop. But after about a year, she said to me, hey, why don't you invite me to travel the world with you? And that was it for me. I was like, giddy up. This is your idea, and I really dig you, and let's go. And so now it's been about 8 years we've been traveling the world together, and really enjoying it. So that's how I did internet dating, and it worked for me. I try not to get overly invested if you know, women didn't want to meet me. So that's how I do it. This idea of texting and you know, Zoom calling every day for 6 months, I personally wouldn't do that. But we're all different. That might be your thing. And so I just wanted to talk about what I did that worked for me, and what other people are doing. So that's my thoughts on internet dating, both in the US and in Asia. You know, like if you're a slow traveler, if you're moving to a city in Asia, and you're not slow traveling, what I would do under those circumstances, I would put my profile up on Tinder, and whatever country you're in, I would Google and say, what are the dating sites? I would talk to the expats there, talk to the locals, figure out where people are meeting, and I would put my profile up on all of them. And I would follow my rule, 10, 12 texts, let's meet for coffee or a walk or something, spend 20, 30 minutes together, and then we'll pursue it if there's mutual attraction. Rather than set up these, you know, 3-hour dinner with someone you haven't even met. You don't know if they look anything like their picture. You don't know anything about, you know, how they carry themselves or their communication skills or anything. So for me, it's almost like they have to, you know, both myself and the woman that I'm interested in need to pass that 30-minute test on a walk or a cup of coffee or whatever before we get to a second date. And then after that, everything's the same as in-person dating. You know, you just pursue it as you pursue it. So that's my advice about internet dating. Thanks for watching, and I'll put a video in the upper right-hand corner here that will tell you red flags when you're dating and you know, overseas, to look for, to find a woman who's authentic versus someone who's like a gold digger or just really trying to play you. So watch that video. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.